In 1991, an anthropologist named William Cavett was traveling through the remote jungle markets of Borneo when he heard something strange. Someone was speaking in what sounded like a series of whistles. Now, as a trained linguist, this obviously piqued his interest. So he followed the sound to its source, a group of villagers who were using a whistling language to communicate across the forest. And it wasn't until that moment that he realized no one else understood it. The villagers had been unknowingly creating their very own secret code. Now, this isn't a story about spies or clandestine groups or even talking in code. It's about something much more simple and human. The people of Borneo were literally whistling while they worked, passing the time and communicating with each other by imitating the calls of birds. Over time, these whistles took on new meanings. They developed a grammar and syntax that allowed them to discuss everything from the weather to politics to gossip, all without anyone outside the community knowing what they were saying. It's called the whistling language, and we still don't know if it's the only one of its kind. But let's be clear, this is not a made-up language. In fact, at least 75 different groups around the world have developed their own whistling languages, including some indigenous tribes in the Amazon and the Philippines. Even during World War II, British commandos used a whistling language to communicate behind enemy lines. And German U-boat crews reportedly used a similar technique to confuse American code breakers. But here's the thing. The reason these languages develop is not because people want to keep secrets or fool their enemies. It's usually because they have to. Take the people of the Papua New Guinea highlands, for example. This group lives in a mountainous region where dense forests and steep valleys make it difficult to hear or be heard. So instead of yelling across the mountains, they whistle. Their whistling language is so intricate that it can convey subtle meanings and shades of emotion, all while carrying across valleys and through thick undergrowth. In a way, the physics of sound makes whistling languages inevitable. Whistles are produced by forcing air through a narrow opening, which creates a high-pitched sound that can carry much further than the average spoken word. Some researchers even believe that whistling languages may have been an important part of human communication long before we developed spoken language. After all, the anatomical structures needed to make a whistle are present in nearly every mammal, and many animals use whistles for communication. Of course, humans are not animals, and while we share a lot of common traits with our furry friends, we are definitely not one of them. So, how exactly did we take these basic bird imitations and turn them into complex languages? Well, according to a researcher, it really comes down to our brains. As social creatures, we're naturally inclined to mimic other people's behavior. We do it all the time without even realizing it. But in certain circumstances, this natural instinct can develop into something more. For example, when people are isolated or cut off from their communities, they often begin to speak in what's called a proto-language, a series of meaningless sounds that eventually develop into a fully functioning language. One of the most famous examples of this happened in the 1960s when a group of deaf children in Nicaragua started communicating with each other using a combination of signs and gestures. As more deaf children joined the group, their communication system became more elaborate, eventually developing into a fully fledged language with its own grammar and syntax. Something similar happened with the whistling languages of Borneo and Papua New Guinea. Over time, people began to add new meanings and functions to their whistles, and the end result was a fully functioning language that could be used for everything from casual conversation to political debate. So if you find yourself whistling while you work, don't be surprised if your colleagues give you a weird look. Chances are they can't understand what you're saying. But hey, maybe one day soon they will too. So, do you guys like this type of content? If you want to see more of it, just hit that subscribe button. See you guys next time.